Boy, a lot has happened in our world over the last couple months. Texas, Florida, the Caribbean, Mexico, Puerto Rico, now Las Vegas. And I think if there's one thing all of us would somehow agree on, that is every one of us somehow wants to do something to help. We'd like to see what's going on and feel like we can at least make a small difference somewhere. Remember when the rains came in Texas, Debbie perched herself over by the love bucket and made scarves for cats and dogs, thinking that she might make maybe 45 or 50 bucks. And I don't know how much you made, $200, $300, $400. You were ordering them like crazy. Just a little act of kindness to feel like you make a difference to those who are going through so much. On Friday morning, since I really don't work much during the week, I went to breakfast at the Oasis over there at 143rd and Southwest Highway. You got to go there. It's just a very simple breakfast place, and they have the classic server there. Her name is Pat, who was born to be a server at the Oasis. And we walk in to have breakfast, and on the wall is just a poster board which says, "Our busboy and cook both have families in Mexico that lost their homes in the earthquake. Contribute if you'd like." And she was so scared to put that up there because she didn't even ask the owner's permission. So that was the most expensive breakfast I've had in years. But in talking to somebody else, because she's very humble, found out that over the past 2 weeks, she personally, because of that and her tips that went there, raised $2,000 that they sent to their families in Mexico to help to begin. What they were doing is they were actually living in tents, which was kind of a luxury after the earthquake. So anyway, today is the running of the Chicago Marathon, and which I used to do. And I used to bore you all the time with my marathon story. I haven't done that in 2 years, and I had nothing to say today, so I thought I'd bore you with a couple of my marathon stories. But anyway, it was 25 years ago, and St. Coletta's called me. And they said, we have a young man here named Robert, 19 years old, who did not live in one of the homes, but actually was a student at the school, and he lived deep in the inner city in public housing with his mom and whoever else lived there, lots of people. And they said, Robert would like to run the marathon, but we don't want him to do it alone. Would you be willing to do it with him? And I said, well, of course. So early Sunday morning, I drive into the housing projects and got a hold of Robert. And as we left, his mom said, now, Reverend, you take care of my boy. Bring him back. And I said, no problem. Well, we're running the marathon, and about mile 21 or 22, Robert obviously gets a burst of energy, and he just takes off. I don't blame him, because I basically run backwards. I'm so slow. But he just took off, and at the finish line, I start to look for Robert. An hour goes by, 2 hours goes by, and I couldn't find Robert, and I just gave up. And so I went home and called his mom, and I said, I'm sorry, she said, he's home. And I said, get him on the phone. And I said, Robert, where were you? He said, I was getting a massage. And then I took the bus home. And I'm thinking exactly who's developmentally disabled here. I know I can't do it justice, but there was a story in the Tribune a week ago today. And it was about a gentleman who had twin daughters. And the one daughter had a very debilitating disease. And when she died, she donated her heart. There was a girl, a young lady in Texas who was on the transplant list, and she got a heart. And I guess they suggest that you kind of wait about a year before if you want to be aggressive about finding out whose heart you got, just give it some time. Well, after some time, the lady who got the heart in Texas found who the donor was and called, and they met and they talked, and they had a mutual interest in one day running a marathon. So they have hooked up, and they might be done by now. But today in the marathon, the lady who got the heart ran the marathon with the dad whose daughter gave her the heart. An amazing story. So well written, it just makes you want to cry. It's a beautiful story. I can't imagine what that would be like to run a marathon with the heartbeat of your daughter that you had lost previously. But see, it's in things like that. That's where the good Lord lives. It's in the common, and that's not a common, ordinary miracle, but it's in stories like that where you find out in life what's important and what's not. That those kind of stories can inspire us to maybe be a little more than we are today. I had a couple funerals yesterday, and because I always think about life as a marathon, and one was, of course, for Jerry Samek. And she was active here for so many years. She was a woman of elegance and so vibrant. And of course, the last 7, 8, 9 years, she's had to live with her journey with dementia. And in many ways, with all the stuff that she's overcome over the years, her life was a marathon. It makes the marathon I ever ran like nothing, because her life was one, because she just did what she had to do in the journey that was in front of her. Then I had another funeral later in the day for a person who was an avid non-churchgoer. She worked her whole life in a laundromat. And she told her family, don't you ever bring a minister here, because if I wake up and see a minister, I'll think I'm dead and I don't want to die. At both of those funerals, we heard the words, I have done my best in the race. I have run the full distance, and I have kept the faith. The marathon has a start, it has a finish, and there's 26 miles in the middle. And for each one of us, our life is a marathon. And for each one of us, our 26 miles is unique and looks different. I was with a family earlier this week whose young child's marathon for 26 miles lasted only 6 days. And we said goodbye to this little guy. I was with your family, Jerry's family, yesterday, whose 26 miles lasted 89 years. And the laundromat lady, whose 26 miles lasted 74 years. And then the man who thought the journey was over, running 26 miles with a person who has the heartbeat of his daughter, and the Spirit is there. For each one of us, our 26 miles is different. It's unique. But whether it lasts 6 days or 89 years, it's in that journey. That's where the Holy Spirit lives. That's where God lives. That's where we're nudged by this amazing Spirit. It's where God walks, and we're touched. In the Boston Marathon, they have a thing called Heartbreak Hill. It's at mile 20. And it's kind of at mile 20 where you wonder why you did this in the first place. And you have to kind of make a decision as you go up the hill whether or not you really want to finish. And I'm thinking for each one of us that Heartbreak Hill may look different. You probably come to that hill, that point in your life where you say, do I want to go through chemotherapy again? And you got to say yes or no. You get to that Heartbreak Hill and you say, am I going to pick up the phone and call that person I haven't talked to in 3 years and apologize and somehow, some way try to bring the door open again? It's kind of at that point in your life where you have to make the decision, am I going to do something that nobody else is going to like, but I have to do it because I got to be true to myself and who I am? We all have a Heartbreak Hill. We all have places to climb, decisions to make. And your finish line and my finish line may look a lot different, but we share it together. It was like 20 years ago, and I was driving home from the marathon, and I had my medal around you get a medal for finishing, not for doing good, just for finishing. And as I was driving home, I thought of Tracy. Probably 2 or 3 of you in this room have ever met Tracy. She was in my very first confirmation class. Somehow, some way, she contracted the AIDS virus. And this is back when it was not easy to treat, and there were all kinds of judgments about anybody who had AIDS. And she was at Ingalls Hospital. And so I stopped by Ingalls Hospital on the way home. And I went to her hospital room, smelly running clothes and all. And I walked inside her room, and I took my medal, and I put it around her neck. And I said, Tracy, your marathon is incredible because you live it every single day. 2 weeks later, she reached the finish